If your ink's too slow and your nib won't flow, here's one of the places that you can go. Larry is here to see you through with Mr. Announcer and Cubby too. It's Larry's Fountain Pen Reviews.
Well, hello, my good friends. Welcome to Larry's Zoom Pen Hangout, and I'm really proud and honored to have Mike Ward on here. If you don't know Mike, I'm sure you will be finding out a lot about Mike. Mike is incredible. He's just not a calligraphy. He is, in my opinion, the calligraphy man. And a special thank you to
It's big shoes to fill, Larry. It's pressure.
You better be very careful with the words you use right now, Larry. I'm just saying.
You will be judged tonight, Michael.
I know, right? This is super intimidating. That's okay. I can be judged. I can take it. It works.
Michael, don't feel bad about getting judged, because I always get a 0 from Doc. I'm the wild crazy guy, but that's okay. But then back to Dr. Joe. Dr. Joe, in all honesty and sincerely, thank you for all you have done to help me and to help the community world. Really, Doc. You're a humble guy in a lot of ways, but you know, you're a big access. So I just want to, again, thank you. All right, before we get started, why don't we go across the room and everybody introduce yourself, because Michael is shy while I eat my dinner.
I don't know if shy is a word that would be used to describe me very much.
We'll start with Michael.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Michael Ward. I am a calligrapher, a penman, and a dancer, and really happy to be here hanging out with you cool people.
Where are you from?
Where am I from? I am currently living in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Okay, then we'll start with Mr. Announcer.
I'm Jake Harper, right here in Fort Worth, Texas, and go down to Dan.
I'm Dan Roseberry, and I live in Girard, Illinois, and this is my second year as a penman, and I enjoy it. And Mike, when you were on last time, you didn't have the hat or the glasses on, and I kept hearing your voice singing, "Where do I know this guy? Where do I know this guy?" And you have a very unique voice. And I thought, I stumbled into one of your nighttime deals once and just loved the heck out of it. Nice. I want to apologize. I'll shut up. I want to apologize in advance. I'm not going to be able to stay through the whole thing. So when I duck out, it's not because I don't like you, because I like you. Okay. I'm going to be hurt. I'm going to be insulted. I'm going to feel like you left.
I would too. Yeah.
You don't want to hang out with us.
Did you say you were a dancer?
Yes.
Oh yeah,
we were just in the other room watching So You Think You Can Dance. We're starting. Oh, nice. We're going through.
He can. He also tap dance incredibly well too. He teaches tap dance classes.
Tap dance is awesome. Yeah, you should have been a drummer.
I can drum a little bit, not a lot.
If I may, can I just quickly introduce Olga? Let her introduce. She's a dear friend of mine. We've been at Atlanta Pen shows together, and I will let her introduce herself. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Olga. I'm also the proud owner of this beautiful water. It was a gift from Dr. Joe and created by Michael. So I'm thrilled to meet you, Michael, virtually, and to be with you guys. I've seen the announcements, but I'm typically no fun by this time of the day. So Joe had to talk me into coming. So here I am. I live on a mountain in Northwest Georgia called Lookout Mountain. And I've been collecting and using fountain pens for 53, almost 54 years, but by no means a calligrapher. I'm the grunt in this bunch. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Olga.
Now, Olga, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. I've heard a lot of great things about you, and thank you so very much for taking the time to join us.
My pleasure. See, I'll share a cookie with your, is that a pear or an apple you're eating?
That is a ultimate cheeseburger.
Okay.
I
Went the
see
other
your
way on
parent
that
apple
one.
and I raise you
Okay.
ultimate cheeseburger.
Well,
Now I'm jealous, Larry.
I'll
Larry,
raise you
still
your
lied, Larry,
cheeseburger
still
for
lied.
cooking. I don't feel bad for my
Any
cooking.
crisp apple.
Believe it or not, Dr. Joe sent me this 2 months ago. So heated it up and ate it. And let me skip over to Liz.
I'm Liz Colton from Washington State.
And a special thing to Liz. Liz and I have been friends for a long time. Haven't we not? Long time.
Many
And
years.
we have a lot of things in common. And Liz is just a wonderful lady. I mean, she even threw the hat and she helped me all she can. And at this time of need, Liz, thank you so much. And I will be asking you for some more help because I'm putting some new things together, totally different, that I think is going to be pretty cool.
Okay.
So, and that's where you're going to come in. Okay.
I'm looking forward to it.
And then I'm going to ask Dr. Joe to help as well, but you know how Dr. Joe is. Okay. So, all right. So let's go to Dr. Joe. Who are you, Dr. Joe?
Who are you?
Joe Vitolo. I am a longtime fountain pen collector, user, penman. My specialty in the calligraphic world was not what Michael does, but was what they call engrosser script, or what most folks call copper plate. That's what I'm mainly known for. I haven't done that in quite a while, simply because it's easier for me to just do the cursive stuff. My hands are not what they used to be. I've got diabetes and I have peripheral neuropathy and stuff like that. My eyes aren't that good anymore either. So in short, I'm falling apart at the age of 62. And when you do copper plate, as Michael will tell you with the stuff he does, that's three-dimensional writing. You have to write an XYZ axis plus press into the paper. I can do it, but I'm the kind of guy where my makeup is, if I can't do it like I used to, don't want to be bothered. I could probably do a fair hand, but it's just been so long now.
All right, let's go to Maryland.
Georgia. I'm in Georgia, Augusta.
All right, now Maryland for a minute. Maryland.
Hello, I'm Miss Marilyn Darling.
Wait,
I'm
before
from,
you start, I want to thank you for taking the time out to join us. I know you're busy,
thank
but
you.
I always enjoy having you on the show, dear. So, Michael, I do want to say this to you. I do love your calligraphy. It's beautiful as well. Same with Dr. Joe. Beautiful as well. Now, Tony's not on right now, but his is gorgeous as well. So we have a lot of great people that know how to do calligraphy, except for me. I have the crippling arthritis in my wrist, so it's hard to write, and it's even hard for me to change strings on a guitar and to clean it. As easy as it is, when you get this stuff, it's difficult, but I keep trying. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish your introduction.
Maryland.
Hello, I'm Miss Marilyn Darling. I'm from Santa Ana, California. I run the YouTube channel, Marilyn Darling Show. I do reviews of fountain pens, ink, paper, and on the slight hand, a little bit of calligraphy every now and then.
And you have a little other occupation too, right, Marilyn? You're a gastroenterologist.
I am a gastroenterologist.
Oh yeah, just a little occupation, just a little something on the side.
Just a little.
Tell them it pays for your habits, right? That's what I tell people. My
Right.
job,
Everyone,
my habits.
I get complaints that they see the 20 minutes of me at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. What are you doing home? Or at 1 o'clock in the afternoon? I'm like, I did that last night. And it's like scheduled. Don't you know about the YouTube scheduling? Anyway, sorry. And just before anybody yells at me, this is Monster, just so you know.
I wouldn't yell at you. You do you, Marilyn. You do you.
Not you guys, people in the comments. I get them every now and then.
No, I never look at the comments, Marilyn. I never look at them. I just, even my own videos. I guess I don't want to get upset.
I love looking at the comments. They're full of wonderful little drama.
Well, let's go over to Stan, who needs to introduce his furry friend as well.
I apologize for my cat, Kate.
I'm wondering what
She
the heck.
went to it right now. My name is Stan. I'm from Philadelphia. And this weekend I was at Philadelphia Pen Show. And thank you, Larry, for a very nice surprise.
Oh, you got it? Good, good. Yes.
Well, I
let me
haven't
tell you
gotten
what,
yet.
but you're
Um,
gonna get it.
Yeah.
So you were totally surprised and shocked, right?
Yeah, of course. I went there Saturday. I thought it would be gone by Friday. And, and then yesterday, no, 2 days ago, Sunday, Frank wrote me that, forgot about the surprise. So yeah, I was totally surprised. Thank you very much.
So let me elaborate on that a little bit. Stan, that you have supported me religiously and you come on the show a lot and you really care about what you do and you really have a big heart with fountain pens. And all of us on here for one main reason, we're all connected somehow. And fountain pens is our connection. It's a bond. So here's my plan. Now, I don't know how I'm doing it, but I have to do it at my pace. What I want to do to each and every one, I want to do something individual for them without them knowing about it. And then when it happens, it happens. So that's my way of trying to pay people back for all what you've given to me. Now, how I do it is that, I write names down, who makes them, who doesn't make them, blah, blah, blah. And that's how I do my list. So that's how I'm doing my thing. And you have to understand me. I'm not your usual 8-ball because I'm kind of off. Wouldn't you say, Doc?
A little bit.
Yeah,
More than anybody else.
but that's okay. That's what happens when you're playing a rock band. You tend to lose your mind. Okay, so let's move on to our friend, before he starts, Mike Green. Now, Mike Green has been doing this for only 8 months. And Mike Green, and I'm serious, I'm not just saying this to people buy your pens. You can buy his pens if you want. You don't have to if you don't want. Mike has laid down a beautiful creation of fountain pens. And Mike is already working outside the box to improve his game. And knowing Mike like I do, Mike is going to really improve his game to get way up there in pens. Right now, Mike pens are affordable. So what's affordable and what's not affordable? That's up to the individual. But sooner or later, Mike pens will go up because Mike pens is going to be putting more love, more work, more accessories into it. So if you haven't tried a pen yet, I think right now is probably the best time to get into it. I love Mike Green fountain pens. I support him 1000%. Now, let me say that there's a lot of pen makers here in the US, and I'm just now venturing out. And people have asked me, Larry, which is the best custom pen maker? Well, I'm not here to judge the best custom pen maker. That's for each individual to do that. I'm here to bring them on and let us know what they do and show us the work. And then I believe the customer can make that decision if they think that pen is worth that kind of money or not. So Mike, now it's your turn. Take it away.
Well, now that we finished our commercial break, let's see. My name is Mike Green. I live in Delano, Minnesota, near Minneapolis. Let's see. I am not a calligrapher by any stretch. When my mother saw my handwriting when I was very young, she thought I should be a doctor. I'm not a doctor, but I did start using fountain pens thinking they might improve my handwriting, and they haven't so far. I keep trying new nibs, and they still haven't either. So I keep trying. But anyway,
well, you gotta take my free class, and then maybe you'll get better at it.
All right, I should do that. I do need classes, that's for sure. I need your help. But anyway, so now I've switched to making pens as well. So as Larry mentioned, I started about 8 months ago, 8 months ago, and I'm just cranking them out, having a good time with them and having fun. And that's what it's all about. I'm making pens I would like to use and just having a good time.
And they do look great. Let's go down to Tina. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Tina, you're on mute.
Maybe that.
My students tell me that all the time. I hit the button, but I didn't hit it hard enough. I'm Tina. I live outside of Chicago, right next to O'Hare Airport.
Oh, I hate that
I've been
airport.
using fountain pens most of my life. You don't like O'Hare?
Oh my
Sarah?
God. Okay, when you look, have you ever been in one of those bathrooms where the mirrors are on both sides and you have that mirror effect going on? That's that airport. It's horrible. And every one of them are like that. And it's like looking down and you're like, whoa, you get that. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I understand completely. I don't like them either. I'm outside of Chicago. I teach special education students, and I have several students in my class that like using the preppies I have for them because they don't have to put any pressure to the page when they're writing because they have very sensitive senses, I guess is what you would say. So they really like being able to use those when we're writing. And I get more writing out of them than if I ask them to use a pencil or a ballpoint. So
less fatigue.
Awesome. So
that's great. What grade are your students?
Right now I have 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Wow.
I have 10 students in my classroom, so I'm at my cap level because of their emotional and behavioral issues.
Are they all combined? Are they all combined in one class?
Yes.
Yes, the way it was when I was in high school. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm in a therapeutic day school, so the entire school is set up this way. So we do a lot of social, emotional, and basic how to work in a classroom, how to be around other people, how to, be able to complete work, whether it's sitting in your chair, laying on the floor, whatever works for them, giving them a chance to get those skills that they've not been able to get.
That's great. Lannis, let's go to you.
Who's moderating tonight?
Well, it's a tie between me and Larry.
Oh, okay. So that's Jake
Yeah.
that I'm here. Oh, okay.
And Mr. Announcer.
Okay. Well, I'm Lannis, and I am probably one of the very only few Canadians on this. I live in Ontario, right beside Toronto in Mississauga. And for the first time in my life ever, I had a couple of snow days from work. Usually you hear about that from school, but I actually had them from work. So that was a big bonus. It just lengthened my weekend to 5 days because I have Fridays off. So I have been collecting fountain pens. I started it way back in about 77. And then I collected them for, a handful of years, and then got married, children came along, and I forgot about fountain pens and stuff like that until probably a decade or so ago. I was still collecting ballpoint pens and stuff like that because I use them a lot at work. But I like to use them for writing my pen pals. I can't, because of the actual trade that I'm in, fountain pens don't work for me at work. But I have this penchant for pelicans, and isn't that right, Tina?
Yes, it is. She has quite the flock.
And that's about it.
Okay, Liz, let's go to you. And your microphone is off at the moment.
No, I already introduced myself. Thank you, though.
I thought I missed it somewhere then.
That's okay. That's okay.
I think everybody's gone.
Okay, Mr. Mike Ward, would you please tell us, what do you do?
Now, Mike Ward, we're going to turn this over to you. It's all about Mike Ward. And if you don't know about him, you're fixing to find out.
And Lannis, he is a Canadian.
Yes, Lannis, I am Canadian.
Oh, you're on the West Coast, aren't you?
Yepers.
I now, you know what? I remember that from last Zoom we had.
Yep, I was born and raised in a small town called Barhead, Alberta. And then
I was born in Vermilion, so we weren't that far apart.
Oh, there we go. Yeah. And then about 14 years ago, I moved to Los Angeles, where I lived for 12 years. And then right before the whole pandemic and everything happened, I had just relocated back to Canada, and here I am. I mean, I moved home to self-isolate for the past 2 years, but that's what it is. So who am I and what do I do? My name is Michael Ward. And like I said before, I am a penman, a dancer. Those are my two main careers. I was a dancer most of my life. I still am a dancer. I teach dance. That's what I moved down to Los Angeles to do as a performer and a dancer. And then a number of years ago, I want to say 2009-ish, 9 or 10, I started getting interested in pens. And I attended my very first pen show in, I believe, I don't remember if it was 2009 or 2010. I can't remember. I attended my first pen show in Los Angeles that was sort of my introduction to this vast world of pens. I remember vividly the day that I went from thinking that pens are just something you have on your desk and they just cost like 50 cents and whatever, to buying my first, what was to me at the time an expensive pen, which was a $3 Parker Vector, not a expensive pen by any stretch of the imagination. But I vividly remember thinking, am I really going to spend $3 on a pen? And then, as I'm assuming everybody in this room has fallen down this rabbit hole, you go from, am I really going to spend $3 to, am I really going to spend 5 to 15 to 20 to 30? Yeah, exactly, Marilyn. Totally. Then
Michael, you are way off on the digits there, buddy.
It's a stroke. You go from
way off on the digits.
It's a start. That was the starting point, and then we get to the hundreds, and then the thousands. Yeah, it's a slippery slope that never seems to end. Unfortunately, for my collection and fascination with penmanship, I am an artist, so there is not the ability to acquire a lot of the pens that I would have wanted to acquire and things like that. But I love my collection. I love fountain pens. Through the discovery of fountain pens, like Dan mentioned, I wanted to improve my handwriting. Or was it Dan that said, you said if you get a fountain pen, you'll help? No, that was Mike that said that. Sorry. That your fountain pens will help you in improve your handwriting. I guess I wanted to improve my handwriting when I was into fountain pens because I was writing a lot of correspondence. I had a lot of my best friends were on cruise ship tours and things like that. So I was writing letters to a lot of people all over the place. So I tried to improve my handwriting, discovered this fascinating little website called iampith.com that had some old books on improving your handwriting, discovered the Palmer method of business penmanship, or of penmanship, and then that sort of got me started. And then I discovered this world of shaded writing called Cinarion. Prior to that, I had known about engrosser script and copperplate a little bit because I was an arty kid. I'd never done it, but I had learned about it, and I knew that with flexible pens you could do flexi writing, which my flexi writing at the time was more like a modern penmanship type of just shade every downstroke with no real discipline or anything. But I discovered Cinarion script and ornamental penmanship, which are the scripts that I do now, because that was my absolute rabbit hole. I fell into that rabbit hole and I've been falling continuously ever since that day, because it's really, really hard. And I practice a lot to try to get really good at it, and it is really challenging. And then another thing that's unfortunate to my fountain pen world, as I got better or more accomplished at penmanship, my desire or want for a perfectly, extremely fine hairline and whatnot, even if whether I was shading or not, but my needs, for lack of a better word, for my instrument are, I wanted what I got from a dip pen, and that's hard to achieve with a fountain pen. So I stopped using a lot of the fountain pens that were sort of my daily writing instruments at the time. And now 99% of the writing that I do is with a dip pen. And my fountain pens have to be custom ground to be, which is more expensive now. If I want to use one of my pens, I like my Decimo, for example, it's got to have a Mike Masuyama quad extra fine nib in it. Or just, I'm super jealous that Stan, you were at the Philly Pen Show. That's one of the pen shows that I attend every year. And I was super sad that I couldn't make it this year. But I did have a friend of mine purchase me a new section for my Shown Pocket 6 so that I can put a new Yovo nib in it. I have a Bach in there right now, and I want the Yovo section. And then I got Gina from Custom Nib Studio to do, like, untested by me, so fingers crossed that it's going to be incredible. They sent me pictures and stuff, but somebody always asks, is that extra fine, double extra fine? And I tell them, it's make it as fine as you can make it fine, which is always a fun thing to ask Nibmeisters to do for me. But yeah, so the pens that I use now all have to be or are custom ground, because the old ones, the part of my old collection, all my old Watermans and whatnot, I love them and I will never probably get rid of them, but they don't work for me anymore, unfortunately. Some of them have been custom ground as well, so I can use some of them, but I'm more hesitant to get customizations on the vintage pens, just because it's nice to keep them vintage and whatnot. But that's my story. I'm now a penman. Before the pandemic, I was traveling heavily around the world teaching Spencerian and ornamental penmanship. I'm striving to do the writing the way that the master penman did it in the golden age of penmanship in the late 1800s and early 1900s. And I absolutely love doing it. And I feel like, being a dance instructor and a dancer for a lot of years, the movement aspect that is required in the writing training that feels really natural to me, or it's something that I like. So it's not just purely analytical. I can teach it like I teach a dance class or something. So I think it's sort of a different perspective than we see when we read the penmanship books and things like that. So yeah, I am a penmanship teacher. I travel and teach. I look forward to the day that I can start traveling and teaching again, because that's been obviously squashed for quite a while. And that's me. And then I play with leather from time to time.
Michael, let me stop you for a second, because you touched on something that's really, really important. Anybody who's ever seen me write, you see me write with lots of finger movement, lots of extension, finger movement, wrist movement. What's different about the way I write, what I call calligraphic penmanship, versus the movement you do for ornamental penmanship? What's the base? It's a leading question, but I think it needs to be addressed. What's the difference?
The big difference is the movement. It's the writing that I do is propelled all by the old books would call them the large muscles. It's propelled by your back muscles, your shoulder muscles, and whatnot. So
muscular movement.
Yes. Yeah. It's called, there's forearm movement is what most people use, which is a combination of forearm is still used in grosser script and in slower flourishing and whatnot. But the difference is it has to be done quickly. And like, if I'm holding a pen like so, whereas like Dr. Joe said, he's using finger movement, which is something like this, where you're drawing the forms, and your wrist and your forearm move as well for the larger stuff, but you're primarily controlling your pen with your fingertips, which is what I would say probably 90% of people that use fountain pens as well. That's how we learn to write, because nobody trains to write movement writing anymore. Because maybe penmen will not like me for saying this, but it's not super necessary in our now world to be able to write with movement. But as I believe it was Tina mentioned, her student, she said she can get more writing out of them because they don't have to press and things like that. The biggest benefit to the style of writing or the style of movement is my hand aside from applying, and I apply very, very little pressure to a pen, whether it be a fountain pen or a dip pen, nothing up to my elbow moves. Everything here is completely 100% relaxed and stationary. The only time that there's ever any, and it's not like no white knuckling of the fingertips or anything like that. My hand is like the pen could just fall out. The only time that weight is applied is, as Dr. Joe mentioned earlier, as we have to go down the vertical axis. When I have to do a shade, I have to grip the pen a little bit more so that the pen doesn't fly out of my hand, because there's literally no pressure. And that accomplishes two things. One is my hand gets no fatigue whatsoever, and I can write for hours and hours and hours without any tension. And then the other one, which is something that most people, I would say it's one of the first hurdles that people have to get into when they're doing any script or any type of writing, is the hairline. If I'm not gripping my pen, and I'm not which means if I don't grip my pen, it's physically impossible for me to apply a downward force to my pen. So it's also physically impossible to have a heavy hairline. All my lines are going to be super fine. So all that goes together with, to get back to Dr. Joe's question, my writing is all movement based. So my forearm sits on the edge of the table and it stretches like that. So, and then my hand just is along for the ride. All its job is to do is to hold the pen. It doesn't move or guide or anything, except for when shades and things like that are applied. So all the movement comes from my upper arm. So it's much more training wise, rather than learning to like trace a shape a bunch of times when we're learning to draw. It is like a baseball player. You can't explain and you can't slowly figure out how to do a curveball. No, you got to throw thousands of curveballs till your arm muscles and your back muscles and everything get that training and get used to that muscle memory, for lack of a better term, to be able to do it. So
Michael,
that's what I do.
This leads into something I mentioned on our last, you weren't here, but last Zoom Hangout. I forget if it was John DeCalabis or Brian Walker who said, one of them said, the pen should never press against the paper should press against the pen. That's one way of saying what you just said. And the other one is the pen should never touch the paper, only the ink. And that's incredibly difficult to achieve. And I think the skill that Michael possesses and the one he's talking about is probably the hardest to learn. It's also the one that old penmen would say went first. They could do engrosser, script, and copperplate up to quite a late age. I mean, Willis Baird was doing almost 80 years old. But the ornamental penmanship is something that's the first skill to be lost because the psychomotor deterioration at that time. Michael, I'm going to post a quick picture up here. And if I said to Michael, what's the best, in my opinion, Joe Vitolo's opinion, the best ornamental penmanship piece ever done? I think you know right away what I'm talking about. And this is the A.D. Taylor Bodenheimer piece. Michael, why can't I do that with finger and wrist movement?
I mean, you can trace it or you can copy it with finger and wrist movement. But if you, perfect example, there's two spots on here that are, one of them is very, very fine. If you look at, I'm pointing at the screen, but unfortunately, maybe Joe can go.
Tell me where you want me to go.
The top left of the entrance oval of the B.
Top left of the entrance oval of this one here?
Yeah, but so farther to the left? Here? The entrance oval, yeah, the top.
Okay,
you
I'm
see
sorry,
how it starts to get just left of, right where the cursor on the very top left of that oval, it starts to get farther to the left, right there. It starts to get slightly, you see just the slightly darker, like nothing anybody would call a shade, something that we'll say 90% of people wouldn't notice, but that slight little thing is, it's not something that A.D. Taylor planned. It is a product of the speed and freedom of his writing, that as he was coming around that curve, his pen exuded like slightly more pressure coming around the corner. You can see a more extreme example is the very, very bottom right of below the bottom right of the R on Bodenheimer as well, on that the large flourish. Yeah, right there. So that's a bigger example. Like that likely wasn't a planned shade. It might have been. Sometimes the penman would plan to do the accents. The other three small accents that are on the bottom there, those were intentional. Those are big enough, I believe, he put those in on purpose. But those fine little differences,
The other possibility here too, Michael, and I think you might agree with this, is that sometimes these penmen couldn't complete the stroke with lack of ink. One of the things these folks were absolutely masters of being able to lay the pen back down and not being able to tell they ever pick it. The way in which I found some of this stuff out is in the IAMPITH archive room, sitting down with specimens and a magnifying glass. And Del Tisdale was the one, the late Del Tisdale was the one who said, no, Joe, look here. This is not a one stroke. And until you see, if I didn't see these pieces with my own eyes, like the real pieces, I never got to see this one, but I wouldn't have believed the human hand was capable of doing that. But that's a remarkable specimen. I know, Michael, you've tackled that specimen on some of your nighttime.
I have. And is one of the things, well, A.D. Taylor, his right, like all the old master penmen had the coolest thing about all of them, because there are penmen today, and I'll be confident for a moment and say I count myself as sort of sometimes among them, who can, like a single piece, who can do a piece that's relatively close to what a penman could do back in the day. But what made, in my opinion, the penmen back in the day so accomplished is they all had a very individual look. So if you look at A.D. Taylor's versus C.C. Canaan versus E.A. Lupfer, all these different penmen, their writing looked different, but they could all do, they were skilled, like you'd be, oh, but write like this. They could do anything. Like they could do each other's styles. And what A.D. Taylor's sort of style is very, his loops, and his writing is, in my opinion, one of the freest looking, which is why his signatures, like the one Joe just showed, they are so free. They're large ovals. I believe he used not forearm movement, which what I talked about, but whole arm movement for a lot of his stuff, where a lot of his capitals would be written with the only thing touching the page would have been likely either the pinky finger, but more likely the first knuckle of his pinky finger is likely the only thing touching the paper. And then everything else is just completely free, because that's really the only way to get those large swooping ovals that are a hairline that fine. A hairline that fine is, I don't care how good somebody is at drawing or what tool they're using, it is absolutely impossible to get a hairline like what Joe just showed without using rapid, free movement. It's just not possible. Not to say that things that aren't beautiful, but they're just not that.
That's where I was going with that, because if I look at some of the what I consider to be the best work I've ever done, because I use finger and wrist movement, if you know what you're looking at, you will pick up the quivers in the hairline. And that's perfectly fine for most people. But if your goal is to be, I think I once said this, if your goal is to be a virtuoso, whether it's with dance, music, whatever it might be, guitar, penmanship, you have to approach the instrument differently. I think that's one of the things that Michael was going after. And it's okay if you don't want to do this. That's perfectly fine. When I was younger, that's what I was going after with Engrosser script. I wanted to be, as good as I can get with that. I never, ever felt like I was the equivalent of any of the masters that I looked up to. And I mean that sincerely. I might have written a few things. Michael said, every once in a while you have moments like one word, and you think, wow, it's actually something. It's one word.
You do a letter and you're like, I did it. I did the letter. I've made it. But then the next letter's not as good. Those guys could do it all the time. We can do it sometimes. But we get closer. Every day, I get a little closer.
And just a small note. Most people think of calligraphy as this very slow process. Now, let me tell you, when I see Michael do these things, it's like some sort of magic is happening on the paper.
Yes.
For those of you who are listening, this is like no small feat. It's like not this little slow thing. No, he's like doing like this crazy thing on the paper. And I'm sitting there going, how did he do that? Like, I try and do these things and I look like somebody's having a spasm on the paper.
When you watch him carefully, Marilyn, you'll see it's controlled speed.
Exactly.
When you see some of the bird flourishes that I do, and I have always said this, I'm no expert with that. There are people that could do this, Jake Weidman, John DeGolibus. But, you have to use that kind of movement. I was trying to get out before with the idea, could I pen that Bodenheimer piece? The answer is, could I make it look something like it at one point? Probably, but I could never get those hairlines. And I think sometimes the people in the fountain pen communities miss when they talk about shaded script with the fountain pen. There's no fountain pen I've ever used, and trust me, I've used a lot of them that are flexy, that could do that Bodenheimer piece. Yeah, but Marilyn, that Bodenheimer piece requires a nib that most people can't even access anymore. You're talking about the Jalop Principality. or something like that. These were razor sharp, needle sharp, nibs. But they also had this property, Michael, right? They snap apart and come back very quickly. Most fountain pens, especially the older ones, are very almost what they call it. It's like noodly. They come apart and come back. It's a beautiful thing. They're beautiful, yeah. And that's great. But to do what Michael's able to do with that pen requires dip pens and these razor sharp nibs that I think for most people have way too much feedback to use. That's why I like feedback in what I write with. Doesn't mean you're right or wrong. It's just that for what he does, and you'll see the same thing with John DeCalabas. And I think Michael would agree. At one time, John was probably the best in the world with this kind of stuff. He possessed muscular and whole arm movement. Because the first time I seen John write, it looked like a ballet from across the convention hall. I'm watching this guy's arm movement. I thought he was like dancing with his hand. I couldn't believe it. And so you'll get a chance to meet John in a few weeks. He'll be on as well. But
nice.
Sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, you're good. That's basically my story. I don't know specifically what if Larry has specific things, or Joe or anybody has specific things you would like
Michael,
me to talk about more.
Other things you could talk about. You could talk about, I'll put something up here. People I think have seen this, but this is
I could talk about foiling. Yes.
Yes. Can you see the piece I put up there? The pay it forward piece? Yep. Is that on the screen? Okay. So I commissioned Michael to do that for me. And one of my favorite expressions in the world is pay it forward. That's what I try to do. And that comes from the kindness I received at IAMPIT, to all these people giving me help. And so I gave Michael my one bird flourish. He duplicated it. And so that's a combination of my work and his. But, he did the work on the leather. And so why don't you talk a little bit about how you did that and why?
Cool. So before I get right into leather, I will talk about, I guess, one of the things that one of my specialities in the calligraphic penmanship world. I was trained in the beginning by Michael Saul, who, if you know his work, incredible flourishes that are beautiful. And I wrote ornamental penmanship, like we were talking about, doing that Bodenheimer piece super slow. That's the type of work that I did for probably at least 3 years when I got into penmanship. I knew about movement writing. I knew that was the traditional way, but I practiced slow. I practiced not the way I teach it really anymore, but the way I still design and do things when I put together, say, if somebody like Joe contacts me to do a piece like this, creating these signatures or balanced flourish designs is one of my absolute favorite things to do when it comes to penmanship. Now, I don't have the physical ability to write most of the designs, like what's on Olga's blotter and what's on the blotter that Larry has. I don't have the physical ability to write those with movement writing. I would like to one day. That's sort of my goal. Hey, there we go. There's one that I did for Dr. Joe a number of years ago. But designing these signatures I have a lot of fun doing that. And then how a lot of people ask, how did I get into leather and things like that? And it was never really, I'm going to do calligraphy on leather type of, that's what it was at one point. But prior to penmanship, I had a business doing custom shoe painting, which is everything I do is apparently super, super niche. But people would buy Nikes, Jordans, things like that. Mostly I did Nike products, and they would send them to me, and I would strip the paint off the shoe, and then I would custom paint designs for people and then send them their shoe back. And it was extremely time consuming, and the work, they weren't cheap. But that's something that I did for a lot of years. And then I'd strip the paint, and then I thought, oh, I could also burn into these shoes. So I would take a Nike and burn like a faux alligator print or something like that into the leather before I painted it. And it was just an aspect of art that I had a business in, and I was doing a lot of work in it. There was a group of people that were convinced that my work was done with all stenciling or that was machine done, because when my right hand goes slow and with a paintbrush or something, it has the ability, luckily, thank goodness, hopefully that doesn't go away too soon, to be super, super precise and whatnot. And that's why it was too time consuming. And honestly, it started hurting my hand and arm a lot because I was going so slow and so controlled. But because of the history with painting leather, burning in leather, I was doing penmanship, so I started trying. I just got a random piece of leather from a scrap bin at a shop by my house, and I started trying to burn designs into it. And then after doing that for a little while, one person had the idea like, oh, it'd be cool if you could gold foil that. And I thought that would really be cool. And I remember being, there was a group of us, a group of young IAMPITH members who wanted to hang out, and we rented an Airbnb in Vegas, and a whole group of us went to the Airbnb for like a week or something to hang out. And while we were there, I was burning leather and I made some blotters for people. Somebody else's suggestion. That wasn't my brilliant idea. Somebody else had the idea. But we tried using actual gold foil, because we were gold foiling, or not gold foiling. We were gilding calligraphy pieces, just learning it and whatnot. So we tried to gild some leather stuff. We tried using it with heat and using the size and everything. And then that started my research and I guess development of what is now freehand foiling, which has become quite popular. There's a lot of people who now make and sell the machines to do hand foiling. There's USB machines that do it. But in the beginning, there's a video of one of the peels of one of my hand foiling pieces. But it's very
gratifying.
It's the peel is very satisfying. They're pretty fun. And like, just as an example here, is very similar to the piece that Dr. Joe had.
Larry, you want to say something?
Oh, Larry, you're muted, or you?
You're muted, Larry. Larry, you're muted.
So, Mike,
There you go, Larry.
on that piece I just saw, how did you lift that up?
Oh, the on the video that Joe posted?
That was Maryland, yeah.
Whoever held the picture up, how did you lift that up?
So how the process works is the leather goes down. I put print foil. So the same foil that we used for, there's a lot of purses and bags get their logos debossed in with gold. It's the same essential process. I just use a low temperature pyrography or wood burning machine to do it. And then I apply the pressure and do the writing, which this is where a lot of penmen have to, they think it's the same thing, but really it's like when tattooers do tattooing of writing. You don't tattoo like you would write something. It's a completely other way of doing it. And then, yeah, you can see there that's, I have the pen and this is time lapsed and edited to music and whatnot, but it's much slower than this. One design, like one blotter would take me usually about 15 minutes to foil, somewhere around there, 10, 15, 20 if it's super, super detailed. But I do the foiling and then I remove the tape and then you peel, and wherever you applied pressure and heat, that's where the foil remains, so long as you had the right temperature and the right pressure. And then there's the satisfying part. When you peel it, the design is right there and is surprisingly durable. You would think it was really fragile and whatnot because of how it was put on and how it looks, but usually the leather will get damaged before the foil actually loses its or comes off.
Wow. Now that is interesting.
So that's how.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Here's my blotter that my one and only catastrophe of my 54 years of fountain pen use happened on the corner. So I apologize, but I don't know if you can see the foil still looks great, although there's lots of, indentations and kind of use marks everywhere else, but the foil has not degraded at all. Really looks beautiful.
Yay.
And it's rose gold, of course, which is my my favorite metal. So
that's beautiful.
It's fun. Yeah. So that's a technique that I don't know if pioneered is the right word, but a technique that I worked on for quite a while to get it the way I wanted to get it and to get the ability. Like for a while, I custom shaped and ground my own tips for my foiling machine and everything to be able to do it. And now it's something that I do a lot. And I have this binder is absolutely full. Let's open it up to a random page. Oh, my lights are too bright. this is every signature that I've designed. So Olga's would be in here. The one I did for Larry is in here. Joe's are in here. Every signature I've ever designed are in here, which is kind of fun. And it's very full. I should do an actual count to see how many I've done over the years, because I've sold and designed a ridiculous amount of leather blotters for people.
Yes, I was about to let you guys know, I mentioned that, I don't know when I posted this, Michael, but I posted this thing about card carving I found in old magazines. And so if you look in the chat section, I've got a link to Life and Works of A.D. Taylor, the person we showed you before. There's a PDF you can download for free. And also the one on card carving that Michael sort of took a liking to. And I also put a link to the YouTube video of Michael doing my blotter and how he designed that and how he did it. So card carving, take it away.
So card carving is my newest niche venture. There seems to be a lot of them now that I think it was half an hour ago I said, that's my story, that's me. But now Joe keeps bringing up other things that I forget about. I do a lot of really random things. I like a lot of weird eclectic things, and card carving is something that, like Dr. Joe, I have spent a ridiculous amount of hours going through and pulling things out of there was old magazines called The Business Educator and The American and Western Penman and things like that. And I've spent ridiculous hours going through them because it's just my own personal study and also what I do in my free time because I enjoy this stuff so much. And when going through there—
Is that interchangeable with embossing? Card carving?
Card carving, not really. There was times in carving and in the carving lessons in the magazines where, say they were doing a flower, they would emboss the center and then carve, but they're technically, or they kind of go two very, very different things. So here's an example of, I did a live a number of weeks ago. That sheet of paper is actually right here. My camera's not going to let you see it. But card carving is essentially taking a thick cardstock and a really sharp knife. I personally use, back in the day, they would use a sharpened pen knife, a round bladed pen knife. I use scalpel blades because they're perfect. I have my little, where is it? This is my jackknife that uses a scalpel blade. So this is my card carving knife that's just fun and handy.
Michael, should I ask you how many stitches you've gotten to this point?
None, actually.
I'm just joking.
Very valid question. I think this is my ability with a scalpel, I think, comes down to another ridiculously niche thing that I used to do way back in the day. I've always been a hobbyer and a tinkerer, and I used to modify micro remote control cars in the late 90s and early 2000s. And in doing that, I was heating up my first really time using X-Acto knives and stuff. I was heating up blades and cutting body parts and things like that. And back then I used to get cuts relatively often, but the cool thing about working with scalpels and X-Acto knives is they're sharp enough that if you cut yourself, the skin kind of just goes back together. It's the best thing to cut yourself with, so long as it's not crazy deep, because they heal really well. But now, I'm really comfortable with a scalpel and an X-Acto knife. And I do wood carving and things. That's another thing that I'll talk about. But first, penmanship or knifemanship or card carving, as they called it, primarily it was used for embellishment. They would do name cards and stuff. Like we would use business cards today. They would do name cards and they would have carved flowers into them or into their Christmas cards and things like that. They would just carve in so that you would get this shadowed, cool design. And if you look at the link that Dr. Joe posted, there's a lot of vintage examples. I have a bunch in front of me here, but unfortunately my lighting is probably not going to let you see it. One thing that I did take from that and sort of run is I took, I took the idea of a shaded Cinarion script or even engrosser script or something like that. And I wanted to carve it because there are examples in the old books of them carving words, lettering and stuff, but primarily it's just, you can see there the word knifemanship. Back in the day, they would carve just the word and they would have to use a specific sort of, in my opinion, not super pretty type of script in order to be legible with a knife. But I figured if I can write monoline with only what would be the path of the left tine of a pen, and then come back later and carve in what would have been the right tine of the pen, then I can create this shaded writing that has it's shadowed writing that is half carved and half written. So this is sort of like the foiling, this is a brainchild of mine that I've been working on recently that I find extremely fun to do. And then I'm comfortable with carving in knives because I do wood carving. And I can show, I'll switch my camera because I'll show some wood carving stuff that I do. I've never carved big things. This is probably one of the biggest things that I've carved. This is an ink jar holder.
Oh yeah, it's cool.
Anybody that knows, I wear bowler hats. So this is my ink jar holder carved out of a solid single piece of walnut. And what I love is all the grain fully matches. Carving a round dome and then cutting it out, for the record, is very difficult because round things don't sit flat. But it opens up and then this ink jar holder fits right in there and it magnets closed. So things like this are this is an invention I did. Michael Saul smokes a pipe. And so I carved for him a wooden pipe that has, instead of tobacco, the N or I don't know the terminology of pipe.
Bowl.
But the bowl,
Bowl.
yeah, thank you very much.
Bowl, yeah.
The bowl holds this jar, which is just a standard ink size jar. So those are things I carve, but what I love carving the most is tiny things. And I'll switch.
I have no images of your pen holders, Mike.
No, I have some here. I will switch my camera. That should work, and you guys should be able to see. This is the holder I've been using lately. This is a tiny little octopus.
Hand carved, right? Out of one piece.
All hand, yeah, it's all one solid piece of walnut. This comes from Chris Yoke, sends these pens to me with just a thicker tail and then just a block of wood on the end so that I can carve them into sort of whatever I want.
And these are oblique pen holders.
And then I have some here. I can show some more. If
Show
there's
them
any
the front.
Harry
That's
Potter
no
fans
oblique.
in the house.
That's no oblique, right, Michael?
Yes. So this is, oblique holder. There we go. Walnut oblique holder. And then I just gave it a fancy little tail. And then if there's any Harry Potter fans in the house, same thing. Walnut oblique holder, but on the end, we have a little golden snitch that has been,
So cool.
it's in, I don't remember what karat gold the wings are, but it's like 52 karat gold for the ball. And then the wings are, is it platinum gold? I don't remember, 50, whatever the thing is to make it silver, but it's all, again, one piece, one solid piece that's carved in the golden snitch. Very, very fragile. And then speaking of fragile, this is the hollow holder, or I called it the Zanarian Twist, because the inside is completely, I don't know if the camera will catch it, it's completely hollow in there. It's just a ribbon that goes around.
I would
Holy
never
sucks.
I would never have the patience to do that. That's why I'm glad.
Well, and this is Chris Yoke, who makes the pens for me. He'll say that too. Every time I send him something that I made, he rolls his eyes, and because it's ridiculous. Nobody in their right mind would really spend as much ridiculous time as I do. Here's a tiny little inkwell.
Oh my goodness.
And then with the letters ink carved into the bottle. I've made a couple of these. I made one with a round inkwell, but a lot of them, I don't have a lot of the ones that I've made because they sell, luckily. These are just the ones in my personal collection. This is I would say one of the first ones. This is the second holder that I ever made. And it was, this is what made me think that I could actually carve other holders. I did this while watching a movie. I wasn't really paying attention. I just kind of got some sandpaper, rolled it in my fingers. My original plan was to make this little barrel and paint silver lines. And then when I finished essentially shaping the barrel, I was having a beer at the time, and I looked at it and I thought, I wonder. So finished the beverage and carved or cut tiny little strips of aluminum and glued them into little recesses that I carved into the wood so that my barrel would have actual metal bands, which is kind of fun. And then things just kind of snowballed from there. Once I did that, then it was carving other things. I like one of my favorite carvings. I don't have any here, but I carved a balloon into the end of a pen, and I sold that as for the penman who has a heavy hand. They can use a helium balloon on the end of their pen to lighten it up.
Michael, did you sell the knot?
So the knot, unfortunately, this is what the knot pen looks like right now. It was my own fault. Give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna grab. I have the knot, so I can show the knot. I just gotta grab it here. My last trip in Hong Kong, I was in a rush and I stuffed a pen into my pen case, which is designed to protect my pens. My pen case, I can show it on a different video or on the other camera later, but my pen case I made myself is specifically designed as a tube. So when it's closed, it never smashes a pen. But I was in a rush and it got jammed in my backpack, and the knot holder, which I like to call the naughty holder because that's fun, it broke. But it used to be like so. Where is it? There it is in frame. It's a tiny little knot on the end of a pen. And one of my favorite little tiny things is the tail on purpose is carved slightly off straight. So it looks like the knot was tied and then it tried to go straight, but it wasn't. Obviously, the wood was carved that way. I didn't carve a knot into my piece of wood. But yeah, that's one of my favorite holders. But it broke and it will remain broken. I'll carve another one. I want to do a series of the Zanarian holder replicas that have knots in, like, one will have a knot up here, the other will be just in different places along the tail, just for fun.
I just wanted to point out that I don't think that's the strangest thing you've carved. I think that this is the strangest thing you've ever carved. But that's just me.
So that's when I learned. That's at a tattoo shop in Berlin called Scriptorium Berlin. It was I was there right when I was in the middle of, I do a Sig Slingin' Sunday challenge on Instagram. And this was the signature of the week. And I was there and I was going to sit down and write it. But then I was at a tattoo shop where I learned to tattoo. So I decided to tattoo. Yeah, it's tattooing. It's proper tattoo technique. I am not a tattooer, but I have tattooed people in the past. I have done calligraphic designs on people. I'm learning to get better, but this was one of my first times tattooing a penmanship design. This is just what the holders, I just have this out to show what they look like. This is how they get sent to me, and I doodle them. I don't know what was going to be on this one. Don't know what I was planning, but.
What was it that, was it Michelangelo or somebody said about, about carving marble, he just chips away the pieces that don't belong?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
When he would say like that he didn't have to get, or he didn't carve David. David was already in the rock or in the stone, and he had to just find him. So he chipped away until he was there. But it's carving, I will say, carving this octopus, easily the most challenging thing that I've ever taken on. After having the idea to carve it and actually getting to the point of wrapping my head around where things have to go, because all the tentacles, like one of the tentacles underneath, goes underneath everything and wraps around twice underneath everything. So to wrap my head around that, it literally took me 2 years of like, it happens to be randomly within reach. This is the only way that I could figure out how the heck I was going to do it. I had to model it out of plasticine so that I could visualize where I wanted everything to go. Because with carving, you make one wrong cut and then it's gone, or it's not going to work the way it needs to when it's stuff like that. So
brings up a very interesting point in that you even do this when you're showing your leather work with the gold foil, and that's the process that you go through. And then one of the things I want Jake Weidman to speak, if we get him on here, is he does these elaborate pieces. What's the process? How do you get? Let's say you're going to make let's say Olga's signature. How do you know? And it's not that you have to explain it now, but your videos do a good job of showing your thought process, how you make connections with the letters. and remodel it. And it's not just simply the penmen of old could do that. I mean, we've heard stories. Michael mentioned Zanarian holders. Those of you who may not know, the Zanarian College of Penmanship was in Columbus, Ohio. Many of the penmen that we admire today, we have some of their work from that era. They closed sometime in the 60s, but that was started by Parker Zahner, Charles Paxton Zahner in the late 1800s, along with his partner, Elmer Ward Bloser, and for a short time, Lloyd Kelchner. And then it just became Zahner and Bloser. And they developed handwriting, but of course, we know that the Palmer method pretty much predates the Zahner-Bloser method. And it was a simplified form of handwriting, that's all. Anyway, go ahead, Mike, sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. I just realized Larry asked me if I carve pendants and was it necklaces? Is that what you're asking? I haven't. Could I? Probably. I feel like I could pretty much carve anything. I don't know. That feels ridiculous to say. There's the first balloon I carved. Or this is a video that shows that's a coffee cup. Then there's the heart. I actually sold that at the. Oh, that was a cool one. I kind of wish I still had this one because
seeing that one.
It turned out I didn't know the wood was half brown and half dark, half light. The way it turned out, it was like half chocolate, half vanilla. Once the carving was finished, and the coolest thing about that one, like when you make icing, or when you do like a cupcake, it's not just one swirl. The icing itself, like it comes out as a star. So the icing has like its own swirl that swirls, if that makes sense. So that was another one where I spent months looking at photos of cupcakes and nobody requested that I carved. I like when people request things, but oftentimes I'll just think I'm going to carve a cupcake. And then that's sort of what I dedicate my entire month to if I have time off. And so, yeah, figuring out how to carve that. Sorry?
Have you ever thought of doing like a hot air balloon?
I have thought of doing a hot air balloon. I've never done a hot air balloon. I definitely could. The part that scares me with the hot air balloon, I would have to cheat it a little bit. I would have to have the heating mechanism, I think, come down through the center because I would want to carve the ropes that hold the balloon on, but I would carve that for myself, but then it would sit in a cabinet and nobody would ever touch it because it'd be way too breakable. But I could do like maybe the ropes and then on the inside have the heating element come down to the center of the basket to make it stronger. That's the one thing too, the wood that I carve, like walnut, it's great for carving, but it's not the strongest, it's not the hardest wood. So they are still quite fragile. But yeah, there's a little venture into some of the ridiculous things that I like to do. I have
cool. Yeah.
I have a slight obsession with. I do origami. There's a cool fox. There's that. That's the fox. That's the first time I carved this fox that I'm holding. I carved that for. There's a penman in Hong Kong named Kalo Chu who brings me out there to do workshops and whatnot. And I carved that for her. Her dog has since eaten it out of jealousy, she told me, but that's okay.
Michael, a lot of our folks, as you know, in the pen world are journalers. And I know you actually will emboss journals as well, right? I mean, I think you don't know how many. And just say a little bit about your website, Etsy, is where people interact with you. Like when you want to purchase something, I went to your Etsy site. Matter of fact, I could probably, Marilyn, if you have that, if not, I'll try and find it and then post the link to it.
Everything is kind of MRMG Ward. If you can remember MRMG Ward, pretty much everything falls into that. www.mrmgward, and then you click the store link will take you to my Etsy, or I think it's Etsy/shop/mrmgward. But there's my store. There's not a ton of stuff in it all the time. Primarily, it's the blotters. But people will contact me there, or if people contact me on Instagram wanting something specific, I'll ask them to contact me through Etsy. At the moment, everything goes through there. I used to do a lot of custom journals. You can see there I do custom flasks as well. I also have They're not on the Etsy store yet, but they will be soon. These are wallets, or like they're the metal card wallets that do, like, here's my own. Ooh, the fountain pen people will love this because it's a pen. So this is just one of the standard wallets, but then I carved into mine, or not carved, I keep saying carved, sorry. There's a tiny brass tube in here that I squished so that it would friction fit the smallest little pen just for emergencies. Tiny little thing.
I love tiny pens.
It's the Oto, what's it called? The Minimo, I believe. The pen itself is called. It's basically you'd never want to actually use it, but it's a gimmick. But it's for I have used it in emergencies if you got to sign a check or you got to sign something in you.
Yeah, I can see
Handy,
that.
and it looks cool.
Michael, is that
So how much does your wallets run for?
I have no idea, which is why they're not on the store yet.
They're free. They're
I'll
free.
tell you, Larry, when it comes to business and pricing and doing all that stuff, I'm not so good at that.
Michael, I hope you don't mind, buddy. I told him the story about when I commissioned you for the pay it forward piece. He gives me a price, and I said to Michael, no. It was reverse bargaining. Half the price. I says, you can't. No. I just doubled the price. I mean, I don't know what it was worth, but I just doubled the price from what he told me. It's like, no, I know people sometimes don't, especially for artists, all the work you put into something like that, how do you really charge what it's, worth is a real questionable thing for many people, but he's not the only one. We're talking to Mike about that with his pens, and there's nothing wrong with charging. Certainly dentists do that and physicians do that. We don't have any trouble doing that. I think
one of the biggest issues I have in the business realm of things, because a lot of people will ask, for a quote, like what'll it cost me? Like if say somebody wants me to carve a unicorn in a wood pen, which I've done before. And I can give like a base price of what carvings cost, but I have no idea how long that unicorn is going to take me to carve, or if I'll break it and have to start again. So pricing is something with penmanship as well. I have this is a personal issue that when it comes to I'm really good at starting tasks and forgetting about time and just working on a specific task. Like as an example, this one line piece, which I would love to get into doing commission work like this, but let me find this one piece. Oh, come on. Will my lights let me show it? There's this lined alphabet.
Holy cats.
All the shadows are created by essentially thousands of tiny little lines going cross-hatching. I made a video that the video is sped up of me doing the entire thing, and it was 16 hours. And a lot of people say, like, how long did that take? Assuming it's like a week I did it in 2 days. I sat down, I started at about 10 p.m. and then I worked until probably 12 hours straight just through the night, because the blinders go on. When I start carving or when I start something, the blinders go on. And then so somebody asks, how long would it take you to do that? What would you charge? I go, I don't know. Like I worked nonstop for 16 hours to do this. I don't know I can't charge somebody 16 hours of work to do something.
Michael, did you use Skylar's shading device?
Sorry?
Did you use Skylar's shading device?
I didn't use Skylar's, but I used I use the same tool. I use a vintage one. I
don't mean to speak in mystery here, but there's a device that you could show it.
I will show one.
A T-square locks onto the desk, and you just click it, and it advances like, I don't know, what, 1/10 of a millimeter, and you just very fine.
And however long you want. Here, let me change my camera again, and I can show this. Or here, I just show it this way.
This is a super cool.
This is one of them, I believe. I'm not gonna lie, Joe. I have a collection of section liners. Is the name. They're tough to come by. I'm no longer actively acquiring them, but I went through a phase of wanting to get like different variations. I believe Harvest uses one that's very similar to this one.
Did you get the one from Ames? The one that there's a picture of is a T-square.
Yeah.
It's like a T-square. Locks onto the desk, and it just advances with a click.
My favorite one, and I believe the one I used for that video, is this style, which I think this is what Jake Weidman uses as well. This is one, this was made by a German company called Half. So instead of a wood base, it just sits on 2 feet. And then this ruler comes out and you set the ruler. I'll try to make this make sense as much as I can. You set the ruler to whatever angle you want. And then every time I press this button, the ruler crawls across the bar. So it's a drafting tool originally, because they would have to do cross hatching at different widths and things like that to demonstrate like this is wood, this is concrete and whatnot. So it's a cross hatching machine. So that's what we use to do all those lines. Yeah, I don't do that freehand. Heck no, that would take way too long.
So Mike, show us your fountain pen collection.
My fountain pen collection. I can show part. I can show some of it. So my camera. What camera am I on? I'll go to top down so you guys can see some of them. It's not glorious, nor is it.
You're more of a vintage guy, right?
Yes. When I was actively into fountain pens, it was the restoring / collecting, restoring the vintage stuff was what I was most into. This is, again, I got into pens before I was into writing at all. So if I change my camera here, shabow, I have this box. These are some of my favorites. Let me zoom out. Mostly Waterman. Waterman Black Hard Rubber are was my go-to collecting thing. These are 52 and a half, which is my favorite form factor of pen, not to be confused with a 52 and a half V, which is the shorter version of that pen. This one here does have a custom nib in it, I believe. I had it ground by, I think, Mike Masuyama at the LA Pen Show. I really miss living in Los Angeles and being able to go to somewhere that I had access to somebody like Mike Masuyama at my fingertips.
It's time.
This is a vintage, this is a no name, but it's basically exactly the same. It was just an off brand of Waterman. I don't remember the number because it's not on this one because it's not actually a Waterman, but Waterman Safety.
Let's go.
And then I have a number of, my collection is not very beautifully displayed like Dr. Joe's or whatnot. I don't have binders or anything. They're all just in boxes, but these are, I have a strange fascination with the Moore safety pens. I always loved them. I think I told this story on the last time I was on here, but my grandfather, when he passed away, they found there was a Moore safety in his desk and they gave it to me. And that one is, that's this one right here. It didn't have a cap, but I did restoration on it. That's Osmond Sumer at the LA Pen Show taught me how to restore them. I hung out with him for basically a whole day restoring customers' pens for him. Or with him, and he was sort of showing me the ropes of restoration. And then it took me probably nearly a decade to find a cap that fit the threading and whatnot for the Moore safety, because the caps are relatively fragile, and they were the first thing to go on them. But I have a bunch of those. Esterbrook's I love. I don't use them all that much, but the Esterbrook, what is the nib on Esterbrook that I like? Is it the 9-2? I don't remember the number. There's one super fine, super flexible nib that was a sought after one. So that's the Esterbrook's and the Moore safeties, as well as some Waterman Waterman pencils. And then modern. So this is a pen wrap that I made a while ago. I'm trying to find a way to make these pen wraps faster, because I would like to make them and sell them, but they take me a really long time to stitch. What I like about it, I'll be a pen wrap salesman here for a sec, even though what I'm selling doesn't exist. So, or you can't buy it, but I'll sell it anyways. I like that this one piece of leather, I happen to have a lot of large pieces of leather at my disposal here at home. It's one large piece that can wrap around the entire thing. So there's no exposed stitching or exposed pens or bumps and things like that. And then the pens are just right in here. And these are my, probably one of the pens that I like the most is the wood. It's the black bamboo Parker Vanishing Point. I got the black bamboo originally because it was a limited edition, but what I liked about it is that it's slightly lighter than a standard one because of the wood is lighter than the resin that they use. And then I have two Franklin Christoph that I got 2 years ago at the Philly Pen Show. One has a oblique nib when I do what I call funchal. When I do undisciplined calligraphic uncial writing, I call funchal. Most calligraphers would hate it because it breaks all of the rules, but it's how I write with a fountain pen. And then I have this, which has a Richard Binder quad extra fine nib in it. In this one here, I don't remember the model of this pen. I guess I can look. No, it doesn't. It's a 20. I don't know.
You have to go online to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. But that's a great one. And then these are just two. These are just no name. This is a Nessimo, and then this is a Chinese knockoff. But I use this one. It's always filled with Noodler's Blue Ghost. So this is my blacklight pen. I will often carry it with me and just do random notes on random things without telling anybody, with the off chance that maybe one day. I used to do stick figures. I used to write stick figures on random things, or if I wrote a letter to somebody, afterwards I would go with this pen and write like stick figures hanging off the letters and things like that, or just like saying all over the envelope. I like little secret things like that, but I don't tell people, so they may never, ever, ever see them, but that's sort of part of the fun. One day they might.
Is your grip section on that look like that? No,
nope, this is a regular section.
No, the cheap one.
Yeah, this is just a cheap, it's a cheap Nessimo.
Nope, the other one.
Oh, the other one. No, the other one was, I believe, the knockoff.
That's a Genhao 599.
Yep, the knockoff Vista.
Yep, that's a good pen.
Which I never bought it. I think somebody gave it to me somewhere. I don't think it's ever even had ink in it, but it's one of the modern pens, so it's in the modern pen wrap. I've gotten rid of some pens, but my collection is not vast. I have a lot of I have a shoebox full of old Waterman 52s that are in like really, really bad shape. Like these are the ones that are in the first box are the good ones. The other ones are in restoration purgatory, I guess, because they're probably never going to be restored. One day I'll probably take them to a pen show and just sell them as a lot to a restoration person or something, or I'll put them on eBay. But that was what my whole collecting and whatnot back then was all about. Yeah, finding the old pens and getting them to work. The very first Parker 52 that I ever purchased was incredibly oxidized. It was basically green, but I was brand new, fresh into the fountain pen world. And I honestly had no idea that it was supposed to be black hard rubber. I thought it was supposed to be this cool, like brownish, vintagey looking color. So that's why I got it. And then this is in the very, very beginning. And then I learned, again, this in the rabbit hole, that it's supposed to be nicer. But I liked the oxidized black hard rubber. I've always been a black hard rubber person. They annoy me now because they can't be fixed if they crack and things like that. And you can't leave them on your desk because they oxidize so much in the sun. But one of my favorite pens for when I'm practicing business penmanship is this right here, which is a vintage. It's an off-brand pen, but essentially, I'm assuming it comes from the same factory that would have made, say, a Swan back in the day.
Looks like it.
But to me, it doesn't have the profile of a Waterman to me.
But similar.
It's very similar to a Swan. But
Michael, excuse me, I just got a word from Mr. Announcer that we got to close up. In how much time, Mr. Announcer?
We're way over time. I'm talking way
this has been great, Michael. 2 more minutes, so please.
This is the last pen I'll talk about. Reason, I mean, this is the last one I have anyways, but this was, I unfortunately don't know the whole story of the company that it was purchased from. It was given to me as a gift, but it was an old fountain pen company that was taken over by, I believe, like the descendants of like either the grandchildren or something, the descendants of where it, who originally ran it, but there was no market for fountain pens of this kind. So they had this huge stock, I guess, of new old stock pens. So they took them, and I'm assuming the inside wasn't originally the right diameter, so they would have probably had to bore it out, but they put a dip pen flange inside.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
It's a fountain pen. They took that, so they removed, there wouldn't have been there would have been a section right there, I guess. They removed the section, or what would have been, if there wasn't a section, just the nib and feed, and bore it out so they could put a flange for a straight pen. And then, so I can have my capped business penmanship practice pen that looks and feels like a pen and not, because as you guys saw, oblique holders they're fancy shaped and they have the bowl and things like that, which is great. But I like writing with pens. So when I practice business penmanship, I just take the nib from the octopus pen and put it in this pen and do my practice with a straight pen. So I like this one a lot.
Would that be more like a dip pen?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a dip pen. There's no reservoir. There's no anything. The only thing in it is the dip flange. So I would put a dip nib in there, and I just dip in the same ink that I use for my regular ornamental penmanship practice.
Okay, folks, here's what's happening. We're fixing to go,
I talk too much.
Mike is going to come back, and we're going to spend more time with Mike and Dr. Joe. And because it's very interesting what he has to say, and he's got so much of it, it'll probably take us a century. But we're going to come back, and I will get a hold of you, Mike, and we're going to spend a couple of hours next time with you, okay? So if you all have any certain questions that you're interested in asking Mike, be sure to Gmail me so I can let him know. And of course, Doc, I will get to you because there's a lot of things I want to talk about. You mentioned pencils, didn't you?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. There's so much I want to talk about. There's a whole lot of things I want to talk about, pendants, engraving. There's just lots of stuff that I'm interested in that you're not going nowhere. So if you're busy somewhere, cancel and come on the show. There you go. How's that?
Sounds good.
All right, folks. Anything else you'd like to say before we go to Mike?
I want to know, Larry, this is to Larry.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to know if it's a requirement to wear a bow tie now.
Yes.
Always.
Yes. Yes.
Do you carve your bow tie, Michael?
My response to that, I answer that question with the same thing every time because I get asked it a lot, is no, but I take a lot of pride in how many people ask me if I did. This was by a company called Wood Thumb, and they do really good work.
Well, I have no problem saying yes, bow ties, and you have a chance of a surprise. You don't wear a bow tie, so ladies, get used to it. Put a bow tie on, ladies. I love to see
All
it.
right. Next time I shall.
It's good.
I'll have to steal one from my son.
That's for Larry right there. Show them I tied my own bow tie.
Oh,
I know, Doc.
that's the rule.
Okay, look. Doc has this thing. Okay, he knows how to tie a bow tie. I don't. I tried.
I'm with Doc on this one, Larry, and I have to apologize because when I got into bow ties, I was told that I'm only allowed to wear bow ties if I tie them. So my sort of amendment to that is the only time I don't tie my bow ties is when I have bow ties made out of rubber and like tractor tires and different random Lego and other things. The only time I don't tie my bow tie is when it's untieable. But all my tied bow ties are tieable.
Let me tell you this. I actually tried back in 2016 or so. I watched these videos. Even this little 8, 9-year-old kid was showing me how to do it. So simple. And you can ask Mr. Now, I tried and tried and tried. Boy,
it's
fun. Don't worry about it, buddy. You have 4 college degrees and I could barely do this. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
I figure that a dog collar will work too, ladies.
There you go.
Hey, now.
So it's that kind of stream.
I have like 6 of them, and they live all tied in my closet, just tight enough so I can fit them around my head.
Hey, yeah, that works too.
That totally works. I used to do that with my long ties. I used to leave some of them pre-tied.
I have one of them that's been untied, and I haven't learned how to retie it, so it just lives in a box now.
Okay, one last thing, quick. I think it's this Saturday. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Announcer. We have Jonah. He's the former
Yes.
New York Giants tackle and Dallas Cowboys coming on, and he's going to talk about kind of his journey with pens and football. So that's going to be interesting. And then later, we're working on getting Jonah is getting a referee from the NFL, trying to get a football actually used so they can autograph it and give it away as a prize on here. So that's pretty cool stuff going on if you're into that. And maybe you can even autograph it with a calligraphy. Wow, that'd be cool. Wouldn't it?
Sure.
Look at there.
I did this just right before Christmas. I was experimenting. I bought a baseball and to see if I could leather wrap a baseball with the plan of doing gold foiling on it.
Well, you
Not
did that.
football, but
Again, Michael, I can never do that. I just don't have the patience for it.
A question to Dr. Joe before I go. Pay it forward. Focus on this, Doc. Do you like that in calligraphy? Because I have not seen that yet.
Well, no, if you look at my oblique pen holders, it's on every single flange. It's something, it's why I give stuff away. I just try and, I don't need to receive things. I much rather getting people inspired and write. So that's what I live by. I live by that kind of message. And I didn't originate that. That came from a movie with Macaulay Culkin. Mm-hmm. And I just love the idea of it, to just pay it forward.
No, again, my question was, would you rather have that in calligraphy?
I haven't. No, I haven't. Michael did that piece for me, the leather piece. It says "pay it forward," and it had my 2 birds under it. That was the piece I showed. I don't have I can't pull it up quickly.
I guess I'm losing
I'll
my
show
eyesight.
I'll show it to you.
I've lost my hearing. Now I'm losing my eyesight.
No, if you're not used to reading ornamental penmanship, a lot of people wouldn't know what it says. It's a lot fancier, and even with copper plate script, there's a lot of people that can't read that. So, Michael, thank you.
Mike, I will be back to give you a buzz next week.
Sounds good to me. I want to say to everybody who's in here, if there a lot of people are on the East Coast and it's probably getting close to bedtime, that's cool. If you happen to be somebody who's awake late at night on a Tuesday evening, Tuesday today, every Tuesday, I go live on YouTube from 9 p.m., which is in 3 hours, until 1, 2 in the morning. Sometimes I don't know how long we'll go today, but I will be doing ornamental penmanship practice. So if you want to see some of what Dr. Joe and I were talking about earlier, don't have to. But if you're up and you want to hang out with some people on YouTube, come on over to YouTube and say what up.
And Michael, I don't know if you can do it, but if you could come on when John DeColobus is on, Mike, that'd be a good thing too.
Yeah, if you just let me know.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, just shoot me a message. Anytime you want me to be here, shoot me a message.
Now, Mike, what I'm going to do is when I get off here, I'm going to go get my ice cream. I'm going to go lay down, watch TV, and stuff my face.
That's good, as you should. Dick Van Dyke has an ice cream sundae every night before he goes to bed. Fun fact.
Now, I'm trying to get my friend Dr. Joe to invite me over so I can get spaghetti.
Oh.
Hey, I got a Cheesecake Factory cheesecake in my refrigerator right now.
Oh, my stars, the Golden Girls. Let's do it.
Oh, it's the red velvet variety. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Hey, you don't get to look like this for no reason. This takes effort,
You know, one time we need to get together and just talk about food.
That can happen too, man. Let me tell you.
Down with that.
All right, folks, I'm going to shut up because I don't know how to shut up. And Dr. Joe will tell me he just ignores me, but that's okay.
No.
I don't have any feelings. All right, folks, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Mike. Thanks a whole bunch, Doc, everybody that's come on. If I miss your name, I'm sorry. I'm going to be giving you a buzz, you too, Doc. So until next time, stay safe. And we're going to have Mr. Announcer say our prayer for tonight, and then we're done.
And Dr. Joe, I'll have to tell you, I had to flinch a couple of times. My ex-wife is a Bodenheimer, and her father's middle name is Zaner. So,
whoops.
Little trauma there.
Now I'm nauseated. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Father, we thank you for our time together with friends, and we thank you for the creativity that you have blessed us with. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
And I'm gone. Goodbye. I think I'm gone. Stop recording. Is that what I hit?